today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that a lot of autistic people experience, but a lot of the time it's not very well understood, even by some autistics themselves. Today we're going to be talking about autistic burnout.
I'm trying to remain so strong. I know it's good if I'm wrong. I got it. I gotta go, run.
Hello, hi there. My name is Deanna and I'm a late diagnosed autistic, and in today's video, as I said, I'm going to be talking about autistic burnout. I'm going to be sort of documenting some of my experiences, what it is. I'm going to be talking about sort of just generalizing what it is to try and get some better understanding out there if you're part of the autistic community or if you're not. I hope this video is going to provide some kind of value for you and whatever you want to take from it. I will be, as I said, trying to keep this as short and sweet, but I do like to ramble. So let's go ahead and get started. So an autistic burnout is defined as simply a state of physical, mental and emotional exhaustion caused by chronic stress and the ongoing effort to navigate a world that's not built for our brains. So when you think of burnout, there are two different types of burnout. There is general burnout, or burnout that neurotypicals might experience, and that is usually caused by a overload of like work, or an overload of like pressures from friends or family, or like just like too many commitments or too many work things, or like just physically feeling overloaded by a lot of things. Whereas autistic burnout is usually, it can be a combination of some of the things that neurotypicals may experience in their sort of burnout, but autistic burnouts can be sensory overload, it can be like physical overload like I described as part of neurotypical or generalized burnout. It can also be as a result of sustained masking, and masking is basically pretending to be something you're not in a way. It is putting on this mask, as the word masking suggests, and it's putting on this front to try and appear neurotypical even though you're not neurotypical. I do this a lot at work, hence why work tires me a lot more than someone who is not autistic. I only recently found out I was autistic. Well, not recently. I was diagnosed about 18 months ago. And from that, I've learned a lot about myself. However, I've started to notice that I am constantly putting on this like mask at work, and that mask is causing me to feel burnt out more often. It takes me longer to recover. Basically, I spend a lot of my weekends in bed doing virtually nothing, and it's not a good state to be in. I wouldn't say that every single weekend I get to a full burnout, but I would say that every single weekend I get to a overload, shall we say. Maybe it's not at the level of burnout, but it is definitely to the point of I'm overloaded, and if I don't take some rest now, I'm going to get to the point of burnout. Yeah, that's kind of my experience of like every single week what happens, usually every single week. Some weeks I have really good weeks, some weeks I'm a lot better, but in most weeks I will get to a point of overload. It does help the fact that I work at a school, and because I work at a school I get like half terms and we get holidays and stuff like that, and I get regular breaks, which is part of my work that I really do like. I do want to make this my full-time job. So if you're here and you are wanting to support me and my journey and also learn something new in every single video, hopefully, that's my plan, I tried to do that, then please hit the subscribe button. And if you learn something new in this video, then YouTube have got this new feature which is like beyond a like, and basically once you like the video you're given the option to hype it. Smaller channels get more points per hype because they're smaller than like compared to bigger channels, but that's how it works. So if you like this video and then you want to go one step further and hype the video, then I'd be internally grateful, and I would feel very loved by people that are watching this. There are multiple different things that can cause burnout. Sensory overload, masking for too long and feeling like, you're having to put on this front. Also things like change of like unpredictability, change in social plans, or like even it can be social plans or work commitments, something like that, if something suddenly just changes. And something that I'm constantly told at work, which grinds my gears, and although logically I know that it is reality of the place I work in, the thing I'm told at work a lot is things change in this work environment. It is so fast paced, and I'm thinking a school is not as fast paced as a hospital, and I wanted to work in a hospital for a bit. So yeah, depends what you're comparing it against. Yes, a school is going to be more fast paced than an office job maybe, but I can imagine office jobs are also going to be quite fast paced at times. So anyway, so the thing that keeps getting said to me is things change here, we're very fast paced, and I'm like, are you though? I don't necessarily struggle with the fast pacedness of things. If I'm given a list of tasks to do, I can do it as quick, or I can do it really, really quick if I need to. It's a change of it Fast-paced and change are two different things, for me at least. So if I came into work every single day and you said to me, as my boss, every single day I am going to give you a list of tasks that I want you to complete. Or this could be, when you come in the morning, I'm going to give you a few tasks, and then when you've done those, then I'll give you a few more, or something like that. If that was the routine every single day, it doesn't matter how fast-paced it is. For me, it could be going a million miles a minute or 10 miles a minute. If the routine and setup is that you're constantly going to be giving me tasks, or I have got a set tasks that I do every single day, and some that I do weekly and some that I do monthly and whatever, then that is a routine in itself. The days might change every single day, but I know that daily I need to get these things done. Weekly, at least once a week, I need to get these tasks done, and at least once a month I need to get these tasks done. So yes, there might be some days where it's particularly fast paced and I can only get my daily tasks done, and there might be some days where it's slower and I can get my daily and my weekly ones done, and maybe a monthly task. So the pace for me doesn't really necessarily matter. It's like with YouTube, I can churn out loads of videos, so the pace doesn't matter, but the routine does. So for me, it's scripting, scripting or outlining video ideas, that sort of thing. Then it's filming it, then it's editing it, then it's scheduling and uploading and scheduling, then it is moving on to the next one. And it's like a repetitive cycle of, this is what I'm doing, this is what I need to do, that is what I need to do, and it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a routine in itself, if that makes sense. And so that for me is easier. But that's all to say, and another reason why I want to be a YouTuber or be in social media over working where I currently work, because I feel more burnt out. And the final one that's on my list is constant self-monitoring. For me, that comes up when something happens, and then I will go home that night and I'll think about it, and I will then, it randomly pops into my head like a week later, a month later, 6 months later, and people will say to me, just don't think about it, just move on from it. And I will turn around and say, I can't just do that. I can't just stop my brain from randomly thinking about this incident that happened like 5 years ago. And then it kind of makes me feel like more emotionally vulnerable or something like that for the whole day, or it changes my mood. Like if something randomly pops into my head, and this could be something that was not triggered by anyone, it could literally just be my brain going, oh, by the way, this thing that happened 5 years ago that everyone else has moved on from, yeah, I'm gonna make you think about that now. And I don't know how to stop it and how to like stop it from going further than what it does. And that is one thing that I need to work on. Any tips? Let me know in the comment section, because I do struggle with that, and I struggle with sort of not thinking of things. And I know that things are going to happen like that, where you think of things that have happened so far into the past. But what really aggs me is when somebody then says, well, just move on from it, you don't need to think about that anymore, it's happened, it's in the past. I'm sorry, but no, that's not quite how my brain works. I can't just not think about it anymore. So now I want to talk about what burnout or overload looks like for me. I briefly touched on the fact that it makes me feel more physically tired, but I lose my interest in like my special interests. So for me, that is things like diamond art. I lose interest in like watching YouTube, like watching true crime. I lose interest in basically anything that I enjoy. I love baking. I lose interest in that when I'm overwhelmed. Like that's usually one of the first things to go out the window, is the baking, because that's quite a lot of physical effort along with mental effort, whereas diamond art is not a lot of physical effort, but it's a lot of mental effort. So it's like on an effort scale, the things, my hobbies and my special interests that are more physically and mentally draining are going to be the first to go out the window, whereas things that are less physically demanding are going to be last to kind of go out the window. And also I find that my special interests kind of fluctuate as well. So like at the moment I've got an obsession with mini brands, and I cannot tell you why. I just love the whole idea of mini brand. And I will do, once my whole flat is organised, I will do a flat tour and I will show you kind of what I've been doing with those mini brands, because I'm not collecting every single type of mini brands, but I'm collecting certain sets of the mini brands. And one of the sets is the books, both books 1 and books 2. I also am collecting the fridge ones and the home ones. Those are the 3 main ones that I'm collecting. Struggling with executive functioning, that is something that I struggle with when I'm burnt out, when I'm overloaded, when I'm not any of those things. I struggle with my executive functioning, which for me manifests in cleaning, laundry, like basically household tasks, but it can be also things like cooking meals, like cooking healthy meals. That's something else that I struggle with. It can also be getting myself out of the house and doing grocery shopping. It can also be a case of like I struggle to even get out of bed. You know, that can be something that I struggle with. And like that's not necessarily executive functioning, but doing tasks that everyone else sees as quote unquote normal and what everyone else sees as quote unquote easy tasks or things you just have to do. And when someone says that to me, my gears are grinding because I'm just like, logically, I know I have to do these tasks, and logically, I know that I have to get these tasks done in order to be seen as normal or functioning or however you want to see me. But it's not as easy as just telling myself to do it, or it's not as easy as just being like, right, I have to do this. If it was as easy as that, I think I would have always had a clean and spotless bedroom. And if my mum is watching this, which I know she isn't, but if she's watching this, she'll be like laughing her head off because she'll be like, Deanna, your bedroom was always chronically a mess. My bedroom, growing up, no word of a lie, there was a path from the door to my bed, sometimes around the other side of the bed, and that was it. I had a constant state of a wardrobe. I got overwhelmed just by going in my room, let alone actually trying to attempt the piles and all those bits and pieces. I always used to joke and say, this may look like a mess, but in my brain it's an organised mess. And yes, and I will not lie, having an organised flat has always appealed to me, but I struggle with it. I struggle to have it, to maintain it, and to keep it looking that clean, organised, aesthetic look. I do want it to be clean, organised and aesthetic, but logically I know it's not going to happen. Like, I know that with some work I'll be able to get it to a state of this is my level of clean and organised, but I don't think it's ever going to be showroom tidy, and I don't expect my flat or my house when I get a house to ever be showroom tidy, because that is a level of expectations that I know will be setting myself up for failure. For some people who love cleaning and love decluttering and love organising, like that is a level that they could set themselves up to attain. But for me, I know that I would never be able to attain something like that. And if I am one day, I will eat my words. But I don't think I'm ever going to be able to attain that. The signs of my burnout and the signs of my overload may look very different to yours if you're also autistic or if someone that you know is autistic. However, it is important to know that everyone's overload may look different, everyone's burnout may look different, everyone's state of exhaustion may look different. Like, it's the same as if you can think of a broken leg. When you break your leg, it doesn't always get broken in one place. Orthopedic doctors probably see breaks in all different types of parts of the bone. Like, if you just thought of your bone from knee to ankle, right? People can probably break their bone nearer to the ankle. They can do a clean break. They can have like a break that comes through the skin. They can have a break where it's like a hairline fracture. They can have one where it goes through one of the bones and not both of the bones. There's so many different types of breaks, but it might all just be called a break. It's like an autistic burnout might be called an autistic burnout as the umbrella, but it's going to look very different from one autistic to another. If you feel comfortable sharing your experiences, I would love to read them in the comment sections down below. If you do not feel comfortable with that, then that's absolutely fine. I overshare, and that is probably one of the things that some people hate about me, but it is something that has come in handy going into this sort of field and social media and wanting to have this as my job. So it has its pros and cons, which is like most things in life. So one good way and one easy way to describe autistic burnout and masking within autistic burnout, or masking when someone is getting and approaching towards that burnout, or is masking to a point where it is overwhelming, is imagine you're driving along in the car and your fuel is blinking and going bing, 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 like fill me up, I need some fuel, but you're ignoring it. In the end, that car's going to stop because it runs out of fuel, or it runs out of electric, or it runs out of whatever. Same with autistics and constantly masking. Like, masking is like using that fuel. If it gets to a point where it's getting towards empty, you can sometimes recuperate that. But if it gets to the point where that car is going ding, 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 and then the car starts chugging along because it's like, I'm running out of fuel, get me to a fuel station, and then ultimately it's going to stop. And getting to that stop is that burnout point. That's probably the most real world example that I can think of as a good way to explain autistic burnout. And in times like this, it's important to encourage compassion over criticism. If someone's in burnout or if someone's approaching burnout, the last thing they're going to need is criticism. So if someone is, all they're doing is getting out of bed and they are having breakfast and then they're going back to bed again and then they're getting up and they're having something else to eat. If having something to eat is the only thing they can manage that day, try and say, are you okay? Do you need to talk about anything? They might say no, they might shut you down, but that compassion, and then reassuring them by saying like, I'm here if you need me. Having that compassion and being met with compassion is so much better for someone that's going through burnout, rather than being met with criticism like, oh, you've been in bed all day. Why have you been on bed all day? You can't be that tired. Unfortunately, I've been at the receiving hand of both types of responses to being in a burnout, and that is why I feel like I am able to talk about both, because being criticized makes you feel even worse. Whereas having the compassion doesn't necessarily make you feel better or come out of your burnout quicker, but it does make you feel warm, and it makes you feel kind of like, I can trust this person. Even if I don't want to talk to this person, I can trust that person. And that person has some level of understanding. Or even if they don't, this person is a compassionate person that I can trust. Me as an autistic would then store that information for future reference. And then if I feel like I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm going to talk to somebody that is the compassion over the criticism, to put it simply. So to recover from burnout, try to reduce your demands. If possible, if at all possible, try and reduce your demands. If that looks like saying no to going out with a friend one week. And the main thing to take away from this is that show yourself compassion as much as you would want to show somebody else. And if you are watching somebody else go through this, encourage them to rest and recover, because by keeping going, they're going to end up in burnout, or they're going to end up in a worse burnout because they've kept themselves going and they have kept going whilst that fuel light is going ding, 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 rather than seeing the fuel light go on and then go to a fuel station and refuel. You're letting it go to the point where the engine is screaming out for fuel. That takes longer to recover from. Also, sensory recovery. So not just physically recovering, but sensory recovering. So simplify your environment. If that means not putting pressure on yourself to do the tasks that are like the typical executive functioning tasks, or if you are somebody that is looking after someone in burnout, maybe doing things without them even having to ask you, like maybe saying, can I come round and wash your dishes for you? Or can I come round and cook you a meal? Like, no, and preface it by saying there is no need to socialise, but you can if you want to. However, I would like to come and help you with some of the tasks that you might be struggling with right now. Or asking that person and saying, is there anything I can do to help? Or can I pick up some groceries for you and bring them round? There's like different things are going to be different, like are going to help in different ways to different people. So for me, if I'm in burnout, I might not be able to go and socialise with somebody, but I might be able to go to the grocery store with my headphones on. But for somebody else, they might not be able to do either, or they might not be able to do the grocery store, but they might be able to sit with a friend and have a coffee. It really does vary individual to individual. Another thing is to unmask safely. So spend some time where you can stim. I wouldn't say I don't stim, I just don't stim as like how the media portrays autistic people, where they're like flapping their hands and stuff. I will sit and like bend my fingers backwards, or I will like sort of move my wrists up and down. I will curl my toes. I will put my hands together like this, and I will like sort of do that with my hands. There's lots of hand movements. Like when I'm standing up at work, I will flex my knees back and forth. So I'll go from a hyperextension to a normal knees, a hyperextension to a normal knees. I will sometimes bounce from like lifting my heels off the ground and putting them back down again, and lifting them off the ground and putting them back down again. I will sometimes, like, even if I'm at work and I can't be as obvious with it, I will just like stand there and tense my muscles. I will like flex my toes up in my shoe, which obviously is tensing the calf muscle, those sort of things. But when you're at home and you can stim, do your favourite stim. If that's flapping your hands, flap your hands. Unmask and stim in a environment that is safe for you. And the fourth step, the final step, is to start rebuilding those connections. Start doing things slowly. Don't throw yourself back into everything all at once. If you've come out of a burnout, start by starting to cook for yourself, starting to clean for yourself, starting to go and do a grocery shop, even if you need some support with that, like you need to go with a friend or with a family member, or you need headphones, or you need your ear defenders or something like that. Go and do something that you feel able to do on that day, and don't be afraid to know that like each day is going to be different. So one day you might be able to go to the grocery store, the next day it might only be as simple as I can only cook a meal today, but something is better than nothing. And each something is building yourself up to a full reconnection to like what you were doing pre-burnout. But also after a burnout, take it as a chance to learn. Take it as a chance to learn about yourself and take it as a chance to go, okay, I want to try and avoid burnout next time. So what can I do, or what can I change in my life that is going to hopefully avoid burnout or make burnout less frequent or make burnout less prolonged? What can I try that is going to help my situation? And the last sort of section in this video that I'm going to talk about is communicating your needs. So whether you're in burnout or not, or whether you are in a state of like, I'm feeling like I'm going to head towards burnout, feeling and having a circle of people that you feel that you can communicate your needs to, or having people that you feel that you can rely on if and when you go into burnout is important. Those people might not be able to be physically there, and you might not want them physically there, but having someone that might check in with you once a day, or having someone who might pop round once a week just to kind of like, you know, check in, make sure that you're okay and you're physically, so you've got out of bed at least once this week, you know, that sort of thing. Or if you are not getting out of bed, maybe they bring you some food or some toast in bed, or you do something that is like you're communicating your needs so that someone else can help you. And you may want to do this ahead of burnout, knowing what you're like in a burnout and saying, when I'm in a burnout, if I tell you that I'm in a burnout, these are some ways that you can help me. Or if I feel like I'm heading to a burnout, these are some ways that you can help me. Or if I feel like I am getting to that point of burnout and I may need to be reminded of these things. Having someone or group of people that you can trust with that information is important. And having someone to maybe even say to you, like, if they know, if you're saying these things to them, like if you say, okay, when I'm heading towards burnout, I will usually act like this. I may not be able to communicate it, but I may act like this. If I'm heading towards burnout, I may say these sorts of things. And if you think that I am heading towards burnout because I am saying or doing any of these number of things, this is what you can do in this situation if you have the capacity and the mental load to be able to help me. These are the sort of things that you can do. Having those conversations, for me, it's always going to be pre having a burnout, because I can get to a state of overload without getting to a state of burnout most time. And it's important to have kind of conversations with, like, I have a couple of friends I will rant to. I'm one of those people who will like send 10-minute long voice notes ranting because I am in a sense of like somewhere in my like buffer of overwhelm but not burnout. And just taking that 10 minutes and being like, bleh. They may not listen to it, well, they do, but they might not listen to it at 1 time speed, they might listen to it at 1.5 times speed or 2 times speed or a variety of different speeds. Or they might use the WhatsApp like voice to text feature and they might sort of translate it to the different things so then they can read it rather than having to listen to it. Or they might listen to it whilst they're on the bus and headphones or whatever. They may provide feedback or they may not provide feedback, or they might provide suggestions, they might not provide suggestions, they might do both or they might do neither. But having that person that you feel like you're safe with and you can like just blah at, and that's the best way that I can describe it, it's just blah, is important. It's important to have that person or people, because yeah, I don't know what I'd do without my people. If you don't have people, or even if you do have people, please know that professional support is there. There are people that are trained to be able to help with autistic individuals, autistic burnouts, autistic meltdowns, or autistic symptoms in general. There are professionals that are trained to be able to help with those sorts of situations. So if you are somebody with autism that needs to sort of have a plan to be able to reach out to these professionals, or if you are a loved one of someone with autism and you need to have these numbers saved in your phone to be able to reach out on behalf of the person with autism when you feel like you need some support to help them, or you feel like that they need support, then having those, not safety plans, but having those like plans in place to help the individual, whether it be yourself or someone else, can be vital. And knowing that, you know, there are things like the Samaritans here in the UK. There is loads of different charities here in the UK and abroad and international, and I will try and leave a link. There is a link to a website and I can't remember it off by heart. I will try and remember to leave that in the description box down below, which is a link to worldwide helpline numbers, and I will try and leave that in the description box down below because it is important, I think, with me being on social media and I don't know where you're from, so I will try and leave the link to the international numbers. You probably already know them if you live in that country, but if you don't, then yeah, I'll try and leave this link. If you're in a burnout, please try not to isolate. I know it is so tempting, and I know that it is like, I want to isolate because this is all I've known, or I want to isolate because it is safe. As I said, I know it's tempting, but please try not to isolate. Try to at least let someone know, even if it's only via text, or it's in a phone call, or however you feel able to. Try and let someone know at least that you are struggling, because the hardest battles are those fought alone, and I truly believe that. So in summary, autistic burnout is your body or your loved one's body and brain asking for rest. It is not just a physical exhaustion or a mental exhaustion, it is both. And that can be quite complex to understand or to find the warning signs, but knowing the person that you are looking after or knowing yourself is important in those situations, because that is how you're going to be able to spot the warning signs, and that is also how you're going to be able to try and avoid burnout as much as possible. Recovery is a state of slowing down, resting, listening to your body, listening to your brain. It is not pushing harder. One of the biggest misconceptions is, well, if I just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, I will hit a state of maintenance. That is not the case with autistic burnout. And if that's the only thing you take away from this video, then it is not the case. You cannot just push and push and push and push and push and you'll eventually break through the wall. That is not how it works. Listen to your body, listen to what your brain is saying, and slow down, because that's how you're going to be able to recover quicker and come out of that burnout state and kind of go back to your sense of normality, or your new sense of normality. And the last thing I want to kind of say for anyone to take from this is that if you're in burnout right now, or if you feel like you're heading towards a burnout, you're not alone. There's going to be somebody else probably watching this video right now that is wanting some sort of advice and guidance. You're not alone. You're not broken. You are just needing some rest. You need rest. You need to be able to give yourself that time, that physical and that mental time to rest and recover, and you'll be okay. Recovery is possible. It may not feel like it right now. When you're in the depths of burnout, it may not feel like it, but it's possible. So I'm going to end today's video here. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And if you feel inclined to, use YouTube's new feature, which is the hype button. I think I described it at the beginning of this video. The hype is the new feature, which is beyond a like, and it's kind of like a save on TikTok, kind of. So if it doesn't save it to anything, that's a really poor description. Basically a like times 2, or however, it's a like on steroids. That's probably the best way to describe it. Basically, the smaller the channel, the more hype points you get, and then there's a ranking system based on the amount of hype points. The reason that a smaller channel will be given more hype points per hype is because they've got a smaller audience, smaller fan base. They're going to have less people watching their videos, so the more hypes they get, the more points they get per hype. So if you are able to hype this video, it will really help your girl out, to be able to spread awareness to more people and to help this video be pushed out. But if you don't do any of that, please know that I believe in you, even if nobody else does. And I shall see you in my next one. Bye.
Just like you're young again, no, don't you cry. Just get back up again.